Welcome to Try This at Home. I'm Cliff Bumgardner.
And I'm Harrison Stewart.
This week we are talking about Mythbusters Season 1, Episode 14. Our myths are Break, Step, Bridge, Toothbrush Surprise, and the Rowing Water Skier.
Yeah.
This episode was directed, as always, by Peter Rees, and it aired on January 25th, 2004. I was really looking forward to this episode as we get into our overall thoughts. Because I remember the break, step, bridge myth, and even that phrase, break, step, bridge, looms large in like myth-busting history to me. It's a myth Adam Savage has talked about a lot over the years. And I must say, I was very surprised by this episode because what I expected to love, I didn't necessarily. And what I didn't think I would enjoy, I really loved.
Agreed.
Are you in the same place?
I keep giving awards, even though we're not that far into it. This was the most bored I had been during an episode. Yes.
Bored?
Several of the myths come around eventually.
Yeah.
But like the setups were so ridiculous that I was like, ain't no way.
You mean the one that takes a month to test?
Yeah, that's the one.
Is that a little bit boring?
Yeah, exactly. Or it just gets to the end of it and it's like, yeah, we don't know. Busted. It's like,
yeah. I felt
sure
that too.
that?
I had a weird reaction to the break, step, bridge myth in particular. And we'll get into the details when we get there. But there was a weirdness, there was a tension to that myth that kind of made me uncomfortable in a weird way.
Interesting.
And my thesis, I'll lay this out and then we can walk through the individual moments that kind of got me here. But I kind of felt like the producers really liked the Adam and Jamie fight from the last episode.
Yeah.
And were, if not encouraging it, they were putting more of it in the show at this point. And I just felt that there was a tension where Adam and Jamie didn't seem to be enjoying that myth. And so for me as an audience member, I didn't really enjoy it. I just felt kind of weird the whole time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't expect that going in. And it's kind of hard to put my finger on, but there was a weird vibe. The vibes were bad this week, I feel like.
I agree with that. It's not even that they were bad myths or not worthy of being tested or anything like that. Just the setup for all of them kind of fell flat. And also this was the most like inception-y we've gotten with hold that thought, we're skipping to a different one.
Yes.
Hold that thought, we're going deeper.
My notes are madness. For this episode.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how this podcast goes because my notes are all over the place because of the way they structured this thing.
I had no idea. At a certain point, I forgot that we had switched myths. I was like, why are they doing this for the bridge? Oh, okay, we're not on the bridge.
You're yelling at your TV. Is the top spinning or is it not?
Yeah. Show me, Chris. Tougher Nolan.
Myth 1, break, step, bridge. So I do love the question in this myth, which is, can marching soldiers destroy a bridge?
Yeah.
The idea actually being that soldiers marching in step could create a harmonic, a resonance that matches or counteracts the natural resonance of the bridge and increases the wobble so much in a kind of, back and forth fashion that it ultimately rips the bridge apart.
Yeah.
Just through the resonance of people marching in a rhythm. Really interesting question.
Yeah.
I thought to this one, and really horrifying footage that they have immediately to set the stage on this of bridges collapsing. They even mentioned the first instance of the story is from the 1800s, and they start showing this old footage of bridges warbling and twisting and warping, and it was like horrifying stuff. So they did a good job in the least of putting the image in your head of how destructive this could be and is it possible that this could be caused just by soldiers stepping on a bridge? Yeah.
No Golden Gate footage. Which I get, it's mostly earthquakes that are doing that, but if I think about a wobbly bridge that shouldn't be, I think Golden Gate.
Well, especially
And
since
they're
it's
right there.
I would say it's like around the corner.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
neighbors.
It's in the background.
Multiple times they've added in the
Yeah.
background. And they even make basically a mini Golden Gate is kind of the bridge that Adam ends up making.
Yeah, I love also that at one point he says it's like the most proud of anything that he's constructed on the show.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
We're getting a little bit ahead, but I don't mind because I want just the bridge construction itself. This miniature suspension bridge that Adam makes is amazing. Like our thoughts on the myth of the episode aside, that is certainly one of the coolest builds I think we've seen yet on the show. It's just so detailed and like it's the kind of thing I can't even wrap my head around where you start.
Right.
Like I just look at that and go, that's magic. You made a bridge.
Well, and that's kind of why I wanted more specs on it, you know? Like I was really expecting a little more, like, you know, one of the blueprints to drop down and be like, here's how we did it. And
Or here's how a suspension bridge works kind of thing.
that's the main thing.
Yeah,
Because
I get that.
I don't know that, you know? And it's like, well, if that's one of the main things that you're testing on, you know, I'm not no science guy. I could use a little hand holding here. Just a little.
I think you may have hit the nail on the head with calling this an Inception episode.
Yeah.
Because did you notice when they're setting this myth up, Adam and Jamie are standing outside in front of M5 talking about the myth. And Jamie looks at Adam and says, have you ever built a bridge before? And Adam says, no. The bridge that he builds in the episode is behind him. They shot this clearly when they were doing the testing, which makes sense from a production perspective.
I didn't notice that.
Except he's like, no, I've never built a bridge before. And there's a giant...
Me? Bridge? Not once. Never.
There's a giant suspension bridge behind him in the shot. I was like,
that?
huh.
God, Buster built that.
I
That's
feel like that's wrong, Adam. But yeah, I mean, then he does go on to build the bridge, and I take your point about it would have been nice to hear a little bit more about why could this be true? Like why specifically with the suspension bridge, why does that give it the best shot of happening or whatever the case? But it does not take away the fact that build is amazing. It reminded me of the Bay model.
Yes.
From the Alcatraz episode.
Yeah.
There's something about a miniature version of something huge that is like deeply satisfying.
It's so good.
And just the metal work and the strings and the way he did it and the way that it's edited together. And maybe this goes to your point about we didn't see a whole lot of process, but it kind of looks like he just does it. It doesn't even look that hard.
Right. It was like, well, I woke up this morning and golly, sometimes you just gotta build a bridge.
Sometimes you gotta build a bridge.
My boys know what I mean.
Adam did not escape, though, a little bit of sass from the narrator. Did you catch this? When Adam first starts, I love this moment that Adam is building the bridge and he's talking about, I've got to build all these different sections and I have like one day to do it and I've got to get all this work done. And then he says,
I've done more work in less time.
He's also been known to do less work in more time, but today he's making progress.
Got him.
just
Got him.
strays.
Nailed
Just-
to a wall.
Just like that is not represented by anything we've seen so far. It's not like, oh, part of Adam's character is he's lazy. Ha ha ha.
He's a lazy piece of crap. Like that guy? I don't think that guy. A little goofy sometimes, but lazy? Nah.
I love the narrator's like, this is my chance.
Yeah.
Gotta let him know.
You all know that he does none of the heavy lifting around here.
And then they go from Adam laboring of this bridge. He ends up cutting himself, which was awful. Like,
Pretty severely, too.
and he's like, it's not that bad. And I was like, ooh, if that's not bad, what is your benchmark for?
Yes.
Because that would end my day if that happened to me. But they go from making fun of Adam for just building a suspension bridge to Jamie on the phone making calls.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah, you know.
maybe that's not the fairest distribution of joke.
He's got to make some calls. He's got to get his boys on the line.
We did get a confirmation, though, that we're in that post Mythbusters world we've talked about, because Jamie says to the guy on the phone, oh, you know Mythbusters, you know the guy in the beret with the mustache? That's me. And the guy's like, cool. It's like, oh, that's awesome. And we are now in this new world where Mythbusters is being informed by the fact that the show exists and the cycle has begun. I thought that was really fun.
Oh, but I sincerely hope they go back to the scariest subway of all time. If that doesn't come back, like, I get it. You have access to bigger and better things now, but remember your roots.
Remember your scary subway routes.
Remember where you came from, maybe.
Maybe there's a stop near the liquor and deli.
Liquor and deli.
Ooh, what about a Mythbusters tour of San Francisco where you like go to the liquor and deli, you go to the sex shop,
Yes.
you go to the Monster Mask place,
Yes. You go back to the sex shop.
you go back to the sex shop, of course.
For authenticity's sake, of course.
You go to the deli with convicts.
Yep. You hit a hat trick on the sex shop.
Yeah.
You call it, and then you end at Alcatraz. It's the perfect day.
It's a dream come true.
Yeah.
Jamie's part of this build is even though it's a little bit smaller, I think it's no less impressive than the bridge, because Jamie has to make the actual marching soldiers, essentially.
Which are hilarious.
Well, the thing about it is you've talked about this so well so many times throughout the season that the way that Adam and Jamie think is just fascinating to see.
Yes.
And I love that Jamie, of course, when it's faced with, I need to make a marching robot army, no worries, I got a guy, number one.
Friend, it's already in production.
Yeah. And then that his solution is like the most over-engineered thing you could possibly imagine, but it's so comically wonderful.
It's so, they've all got little hats.
So it's like, we should say it's made of these yellow actuators that he said are used to like open and close valves on like industrial equipment. And he just gets a crap ton of these things, attaches a crossbar to it so that the motor makes the actuation makes the bar rock, puts boots on that, and there's your little marching guys, and of course a little helmet just to cap it off.
He essentially makes a life-size foosball table bar with those people, and then just smashes them into the thing that Adam just spent, allegedly, a lot of time and energy building.
And they kind of looked like giant versions of, like the little wind-up toys you get at the dollar store?
Oh, yeah,
They just wind up and little feet go...
Yes.
They look like a huge tabletop version of that.
Yes, they do.
It's awesome.
Except for they're going comically fast, like the...
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they don't actually fire them up just yet at this point in the show, but when they do,
no, we have to go a level deeper.
Yeah, exactly. And but when they do, God, it is absolutely hilarious. They did. I wanted to mention here, talking about various bridges that they bring up on the show. They show footage of the Millennium Bridge over the Thames in London swaying.
Yeah.
Which was terrifying.
Yeah.
But I did love the very calm British lady just saying, it seems to be swaying.
Oh my.
If that was in America, it would have just been like, this beeping thing is going all over the place. But they're just like, no, oh goodness. I think I might die today.
Oh my. Single fashion, everybody. Let us exit the bridge for everyone's safety.
I hate to inconvenience anyone, but I'm afraid we might lose our lives.
I hate to be a bother, but well, I do believe the bridge is not bridging currently.
This is the first place where we get them leaving off to go to another myth, but what they do at the end of this sequence is where you see everything coming together the first time of that bridge and all the robots. And
yes, but I want to say one more thing about the Millennium Bridge, which is that they brought up that part of what was causing the swaying is that people on the bridge were subconsciously swaying.
That's such a good point.
In conjunction with it.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, tell me more. Moving on. No. Go back to that. What do we have a natural tendency to sway with things? Is that like part of equilibrium or something?
Yeah, or like you're trying to
throwing out words.
This sounds sciencey.
Yeah.
Or that, or like maybe you're trying to compensate, and so you're shifting, but that shifting ends up in the same.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I did not like how much it was moving around.
No, I would be. Yeah, no, I'd be unassing that bridge in a heartbeat.
So fast.
Oh my God.
So very fast. Have you been on that bridge?
No, I never have.
It does not move. Not anymore. Not when I was there.
They did make the point of like they brought in engineers and fixed it, and it's like I can just imagine them being like, "This thing better not move."
Well, and the particularly funny thing about that is that apart from it being inconvenient, I'm not really aware of many other bridges that have such a specific timetable, than the Millennium Bridge. Like, it must be done.
Don't worry, guys. We'll get the next one. We'll get the next one when it comes around.
We'll get it on the next go. We'll get it on the next. Hey, the 22nd century is our time, baby.
There's a lot of unknowns here. Nothing we're not used to on Mythbusters.
Myth 2, toothbrush surprise. Does a toothbrush collect bacteria in your bathroom?
Well, not just bacteria.
Yeah,
not just
fecal bacteria.
Specifically, yes.
So the idea here is, does your toothbrush being wet and exposed to the air in your bathroom, are there droplets in the air leaving a toilet that would land on your toothbrush and thereby making it dirtier than it would otherwise be? Which does, to use a terrible phrase that I'm sad to say, does pass the smell test.
Cliff, come on, man. I mean, you're not wrong.
Pig stew?
You're not. You're not wrong. It's a good joke. I'm just saying, I need to go throw up now.
I mean, this one did, jokes aside, like when they first introduced this, I was like, yeah, that's probably true.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, it's always been gross to me that you have an open toothbrush in a bathroom. I've always thought that seemed like a recipe for bad things.
I believed more in society's ability to course correct than I guess I should have. Which I guess I'm kind of giving away the ending here, but I
think the ending's way worse than even that. So no, we're fine.
Oh. It gets worse, folks.
Yeah, if you don't like...
It gets more doo-doo-y.
If you don't want a bunch of high-speed footage of flushing toilets, this may be not the episode for you.
Not your episode.
Not up your alley.
Yeah.
What was your expectation, though, going into this?
Oh, absolutely not true.
Really?
Yeah. Like the marching... So I was fairly certain that I had all of these down, which I think is part of what led to my boredom, is that, like... And also, it did seem like at least two of the myths were leading you along to have a certain set of assumptions that ended up not being true.
Yeah.
Right? They were very intentionally trying to implant that idea of like, oh, you already know how this turns out. Psych.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought everyone does it. Everyone does it. Why, if it were true, would everyone do it?
Well, I just thought it's going to be one of those things of there are so many aspects of life that are so much grosser than
under a microscope.
Well, then we even give credit for. It's like like anytime you see them do a test of like what's on money.
Oh yeah,
it's
that's
horrifying.
A bad one. That's a real bad
one.
Oh,
there's cocaine on this $20 bill. You know,
always.
So it's like there are things like that we're not doing it intentionally. We don't think about it all the time, but that have that. So that's what I thought this was going to be. Was just like one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, your toothbrush being open in the bathroom is actually a terrible idea. It's not enough to get you sick, but it's a terrible idea.
Yeah,
that was sort of my expectation.
Yeah,
going in, but I did like the methodology on this one, even though it's a extended time frame, which is kind of weird from a television perspective, particularly when we get into some of the future segments where it's just like time jump after time jump when they're going through this thing.
Yes.
Adam builds a rack to hold 24 toothbrushes all around the bathroom in different positions to see if different, distances from the toilet have a different effect or anything else. And then of course,
there's a control. In this one.
Yes, but first there's the toothbrushes that they put directly on the back of the toilet.
Right.
Which that was even a step.
That's where I keep mine.
Yeah.
But then not where you keep yours, Cliff.
Because I also...
What is that show for if not my toothbrush?
I thought it was for reading. You turn around the other way and post up on the back.
Hey, you're already in the 22nd century, it looks like.
See, hey, I'm ahead. But the other thing that made this even grosser to me is that this is like a work bathroom.
Ooh.
So there's more people. Yeah, I would think. I don't know how many people were working in M5 at that point,
Yeah.
but like,
If it's my crap on the toothbrush, who cares?
I mean, that is kind of part of it.
I guess.
I mean,
guess.
to a degree.
I guess.
If you want to get to
you
the
know
point.
what? You're right. I would be marginally happier with my own crap on my toothbrush than yours.
I mean, if you only had
I
two
had to choose.
choices,
Gun to my head.
If
Gun
you
to
had
my
to
head.
choose-
I'm taking my own crap.
and that's why your vote matters, ladies and no.
Call in now to cast your vote. 555-555-555.
I did like this. This felt, even as kind of ridiculous as obviously this is, they did have more science-y methodology to this in terms of
That's true.
every day doing the repetitive tests. They're going to wash the toothbrushes with distilled water to make sure there's no other contaminants. And as you mentioned, they actually had a control on this one. They even took 2 toothbrushes, put them in the kitchen down the hall, like away from everything else. So there were some like trappings of more sciencey things, which was fun to see.
Yeah.
But when where they started to lose me is when it really slows down and they're like, we're going to come back in a month, which for this episode, for some reason, we're going to show you 4 more times.
Yeah. I'm also slowly realizing as we're talking about this that it's me. I'm the problem. I'm the guy who last week was like, I need more science. And then they gave it to me. I'm like, I'm bored. What, you expect me to sit through this without a single explosion? No, thank you, Mythbuster. No, thank you.
I mean, I do think it shows, though, it is interesting that the show is doing all of these different things at once. Like week to week now, we're still seeing, even, coming to the end of the season, we're still seeing some very different new approaches that they're trying to things. And this is kind of the first in that direction.
Yes.
It's a little bit, I guess, like the Coca-Cola myth where they would set things up and left them in the beakers and the whatever.
Yeah.
Which we also didn't really love because for camera purposes, it's just a little bit weird for a TV show.
It's true.
It's kind of like where the science and the TV show part are conflicting a bit, I guess.
Yeah, see, this one more reminded me of last week's with the octopus myth, where it seems like they're getting a lot of mileage out of the last 6 minutes in a way that the show has not been.
Yeah.
Where it's like the show is effectively over. But wait, we didn't tell you about that last one.
I will say I did like, at least for this, that they didn't save it just for the last 6 minutes, though.
True.
Because that was the weird thing with the octopus myth, is like we haven't heard
whole thing
anything about it.
was-
and then
yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
if they had, even though that myth there wasn't a lot of meat on the bone there, but even if they had done what they did with this, teed it up in the middle of the episode and this kind of wacky idea about the octopus thing, and then, left off and then come back to it later, might have made it feel a little bit better. So I did like that with this one.
And perhaps some of it was like sliding it in there at the end, like, here's the most troubling information that we present in this entire episode.
You sleep now.
Roll credits over it.
Have a good night, everybody.
See you next week. Poo breath. Like it was.
See you in your dreams.
Yeah, like it was very under the wire, last second. Oh, and by the way, I hope you didn't want to sleep tonight.
The reason we got so many toothbrushes here is because we want to lay out a really broad test pattern to see if distance from the toilet, orientation to the toilet, and height from the toilet affect the number of fecal coliforms that we can find when we test the toothbrushes.
Myth 3, rowing water skier. Can you water ski behind a rowboat?
It's ridiculous.
My first thought on that question was like, I don't really care. And then this turned out to be my favorite part of the episode.
It did mine too.
It did me love this myth. It was so joyous. Like that weird tone that I was feeling in Breakstep Bridge, not in this one anywhere.
Yeah.
It was just that they were having fun. Mm-hmm. We're in new places. We've got a lot of new people. Everything about this I loved. The initial question, I was like, probably. I don't know. Like,
you thought probably?
Yeah, I don't know why.
I just don't watch a lot of Olympic rowing. I like
my knowledge of Olympic rowing or like college rowing is defined to The Social Network. So yeah. So I don't know why I just felt like, yeah, I mean, maybe, but I don't know why it's going to be that interesting. But then when they started to get into the training of the water skiing and talking about the speed that you need to stand up and how the water feels at different speeds, I was back in. It was a pretty quick, and I was back on path with this one. And ended up loving it.
Well, I also wasn't imagining it in when they said behind a rowboat, I was imagining a guy in like a lifeboat.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
Like that was my initial like, well, no, I don't think one dude can make it. It's like, we got some of the world's best rowers. Oh, okay. Okay, then I'm going to upgrade that to maybe, but I'm still not confident.
Do you mean the like wet, tanned, shot in high speed college rowing crew that they spend so much time visually establishing in this episode?
They do. They make sure we know these kids' backstories.
I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just nominating this for horniest Mythbusters episode we've ever seen.
Ooh, okay. The bar is set.
The bar has been set.
Here it is. Episode 14. Horniest yet.
They spend so much time just being like, these hunks of man are going to be the ones who, these.
You see this slab of manhood? He's about to row the hell out of that boat.
They really do. Like, that's not even that far off.
Jamie's going to have a tough time holding on, if anything.
We also get here a wonderful character.
Yes. 2.
We get 2.
Yes. Okay.
Well, there's like 3 in this overall myth.
Yeah.
Every character was amazing, but the first one made me laugh out loud. Mm-hmm. He's the assistant coach of the Stanford rowing team that they got to actually be in the episode and do this. His name's John Albin.
Yes.
And they cut to him early on to describe the process of rowing, describe how it works. You need that. You have to scientifically set up, as you were saying with the bridge, we need to know how this process works so that we are with the science and we're with the storytelling. So let's go to John and have him describe rowing for us.
It is about accelerating only when the blade actually enters the water. Once it's out of the water, it's all poetry and love sonnets. Everything is cool and easy. Once the blade goes back in, it's dark and violent thoughts.
It's all dark and violent thoughts.
Hey, that's how all of my poetry goes. All of the poetry I know of is just fluid motions and then dark violence in between and then back to fluid motion.
I also, because it's like he's saying this over footage of these like just hunky college dudes having a good time rowing a boat, and he's like, it's dark and violent thoughts.
And he's like,
it's like a Batman monologue.
One of them is going to die before graduation, statistically speaking. What?
What are you talking about, John? He like goes into a Batman monologue all of a sudden in trying to describe crew rowing. Oh, God. I love that guy so much.
They're the rowers this city deserves.
This is where, like I said, they kind of got me back into it a little bit because they start talking about that. Those types of boats, the rowing boats that they're using, which they mentioned cost $30,000, by the way.
Not a good investment.
It doesn't seem, not for me. Not for me, because I would need 7 friends every time I wanted to use it.
I can't have 7 friends.
No,
that's too many.
That's too many.
What happens if they all text at the same time?
That group
thread. It's gonna shut down.
And it's just pictures of their abs, you know?
Non-stop. And like, what am I supposed to respond with? Love handles?
And
they don't want to see that.
One of them sends his weird poetry.
And then one just is Timmy, it's not Tuesday. They
mentioned that the boats, those types of boats, go 15 miles an hour, and that skiing usually takes, water skiing normally is like 20 miles per hour or more.
We're close. We're within striking distance.
But that is where I started to get a little bit more doubt of like, oh, right, that's going to be the question here, is about, can you actually get the kind of lift that you need, get the speed that's going to allow you to stand up and do it. When they started to get into that, I was like, okay, this is cool.
Well,
I like this idea a lot.
And also, again, something that they can go that fast without lugging Jamie Heineman behind them,
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. I thought plus Jamie, they weren't going to be able to to reach that speed.
Yeah.
Um,
And they do a good job of establishing that too, because that is a great point. It's like, yeah, these guys are top, flight athletes, but they're not used to dragging a Heinemann behind them all the time.
Well, no, and one could argue that they didn't necessarily need to. They could have gotten someone that knew how to do this, but instead they're like, "Hey, Jamie, you're gonna learn how to water ski, and then you're gonna do it."
I'm so glad they did.
Yes,
Because we got to meet the water ski Terminator.
what a scary man.
Willy Ellermeyer, a German champion water skier
Willy.
who is going to whip them into shape and teach them how to ski. I love this man so much. He just yells constantly
So angry.
in a terrifying
In English,
in a terrifying German accent. He looks super happy the whole time he's doing it.
Oh, he looks thrilled.
But he's just constantly, get your shoulders up.
yeah. Knees bent, back, now.
I'm watching the show and I'm like, yes, sir, I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
Me too. Like, Jamie,
Whatever you say, man.
we're in hot water.
Jamie is the first to get trained. And of course, he's A, ripped as hell,
Again, does not make sense to me, but
and
love
B,
it.
really good at this.
Of course he is.
I mean, he the first time he falls, he's like, oh, let me see. And then all of a sudden he just stands up into it, and they cut a second later and he's whipping all around on the rope, doing amazing stuff.
I really do want to know how much time elapsed, because all they showed us is like he's teaching him the fundamentals, and he's like, oh, and all I do is just put those together. Got it.
Yes. It's pure.
It's like doing backflips.
Jamie learns like an AI, where he's just like, oh, I see all these constituent pieces. I just put them together, and now
Yeah,
now it
understood.
Understood. Got it, boss.
Okay.
And to his credit, they build it up of like, Jamie does an amazing job and Adam's gonna suck. Adam does a good job.
Adam's fine.
He's out of shape, which I am too. So
Yeah.
I have there's no shame there. So he just can't do it as long as Jamie does.
Yeah.
But so it wears him out. But he does a great job.
A lot of core strength.
A lot of core strength. I was very surprised by that. It was nice. Even the narrator kind of sounded like, oh, all right.
All right. I guess we were wrong on that one. This time. Darn. That bar did not exist when I was coming up.
The side bar that they train on?
Or if it did, the camp I attended didn't have the funds to buy one.
You didn't go to a camp with a scary German water ski instructor?
It was Russian, but
You went to camp in Siberia. It was ice, skiing on ice, but ice skating.
welcome to Camp Gulag. You're going to have fun or else.
Arms straight. Keep them straight. Slowly stand up. Okay. Get your shoulders up, Jamie. Stand tall. Get your shoulders up. There you go.
So here we go back to our toothbrush myth, and they're going to keep going back and forth throughout the episode, and not a lot happens each time. So I think we should just put the rest of the toothbrush myth here.
I'm cool
so
with
that we
that.
can address it all at once and kind of get it out of the way. Because they're just showing that, hey, they're doing this every day.
Yep.
It's part of their routine to go in, do the test, get the toothbrush down, go back and forth.
Are they still doing it? Looks like it. Anyway.
I feel like they might still be doing it now. Like
Nobody ever told them the experiment was over.
as many times as they kept going back. But they do the full month of testing and then actually bring in a scientist to swab all the toothbrushes, get the samples, and try to see if there's a result.
Honestly, the first scientist or expert yet, in my opinion, that's just not camera ready at all.
Just seemed like a real scientist.
Just seemed like a real scientist.
Yeah, she did.
Like,
I actually
that's not at all her fault. Don't get me wrong.
If anything, it made her more trustworthy.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Because
I was
it's
like,
like, you're not
she knows what she's talking
Yeah, you're
about.
not selling me nothing. You just give me the result.
Yeah, she's not Dr. Eel.
I had almost forgotten about Dr.
You can't
Eel.
forget about Dr.
No, apparently not. Not on your
Never
watch.
forget about Dr.
Not on
Eel.
your watch.
At the end of the season, we're going to do a recap and talk about our favorite people. He's
Mm-hmm.
up there for me, but of course, there's also the recovery guy, the cleaner, the real life Mr. Wolf.
That's
who we had
mine.
a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
We'll get there at the end of the
flavor
season.
of death.
but,
Are you kidding me? Could write a whole mini-series.
He should get together with the coach from this episode and do poetry. Because he could do about the flavor of death. This guy has the dark and violent thoughts.
Yes.
That just seems like it's ready to come together.
You want those people in a room together,
And
for
to-
sure.
and to know-
preferably in isolation.
And you want to know where that room is. Yeah.
You're going to bug it. You're going to bug it. You
Hopefully
need to
controlled
know.
entrances and exits.
Well, hopefully, but who knows?
You know, I hear there's this prison on an island that's really hard to escape from.
Never heard of it.
Might need to rewatch Mythbusters again, my friend. But after all of this testing, they finally get their results. And what they find, as we said earlier, is even worse than your greatest fears of what this might have been. They find that there are so-called fecal coliforms, which I'm not going to eat cauliflower anytime soon.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah, on every brush, regardless of where they were, including the ones that were down the hall. The controls,
they're covered in crap.
which
All of them.
all of them, which I kind of had my first thought was like, oh wow, the world is weird. My second thought was, what's going on at M5? Is this an M5 specific
It is
problem?
entirely possible that Jamie has developed weaponized airborne crap. That's not out of the realm of possibility, okay? That's a Tuesday afternoon.
Oh yeah, I mean that's just what he does.
He's not even going to need the whole afternoon.
No.
Go build some little soldiers.
So yeah, I mean the results on this one, this one was ultimately busted, and I did find it surprising, not for the reasons that I thought it was going to be surprising.
Yeah,
that particular result that it's just everywhere in the world's real gross.
I would have loved some
To
kind
not
of
know that,
right, for there to be some sort of alternative theory, but it was just like, there's crap everywhere. All right, see you next week. It's like, okay. I was doing fine not knowing that.
Yeah.
Actually, I hate to side with Cypher from the Matrix, but sometimes ignorance is bliss.
There's crap on your octopus eggs. Sleep well, kiddos.
You know, this is perhaps the most critical question. Should the American toothbrushing public be worried about our results that there is fecal coliform on their toothbrushes?
No, I don't think they should be. It's a very low level, and as you can see, we're all happy and healthy standing here and been exposed to that.
So now it is time to go back to Break, Step, Bridge. And they do something cool coming back into this one that doesn't necessarily have a whole lot to do with the episode, but it's a good character moment, I thought, where they show a radio-controlled Nike shoe that Jamie made for a commercial. Yes. And it's a nice little peek into the world of M5 as a special effects shop, which I thought was really fun.
Agreed.
It's also a fun peek into the mind of one Jamie Heineman and how he operates when he describes the process of making the shoe. And he says,
sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night giggling with some idea, and I just come down, turn the music up, and all of a sudden I've got this thing that nobody ever thought of before, or didn't exist before.
I love so much imagining that he's just in bed. I'm going to go build that right now. And then does.
For some reason, the funniest part of all of that for me is the turn the music up.
Yeah.
Because that's a party.
Yeah.
For one, James Heineman.
Yes.
You know, like that. I just imagine him being like, oh, now we're getting started. All right, here we go.
Here we go. It's 3 a.m. and I just figured out how to make rocket boots.
I do know that this is actually a thing Adam Savage has talked about in the past, that like as an illustration of how different he and Jamie are, and especially were at that time, that Jamie, their relationship before they worked on the show, was one that occasionally he said Jamie would call him at like 10 o'clock at night and be like, hey, I'm working on my robot. You want to come help? And Adam's like, I've got kids, man. Like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And so Jamie it's like this weird genius robot building bachelor or something.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really, like I said, this beat didn't really do much for the story, but it just furthers that world of Mythbusters.
It does.
And it's great.
He's just delightful. This sounds like the kind of thing that, right? Jeff Bezos
Yes.
is on record saying that he doesn't like music. Impossible. I do not believe that. That is just not what. Are you telling us you're not human? Like, that's not a thing that is. You're just saying that because you know that it's a conversation starter, that it it's this whole like self mythologizing thing.
Yeah.
Jamie just is that person.
He just is that guy.
Like, the show has accurately picked up that we need to show this to the audience, but like when he says, I woke up at 3 a.m. and figured out how to make my own brain in a vat, I believe him.
Yeah.
I believe that he did, because he shows up with the evidence.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And because you don't feel in any way like his ego is tied to that.
True.
He's just like, no, that's what I do.
Right.
Like, I walk, I breathe, I make robots in the middle of the night. What's up?
And he also seems to be getting more comfortable with that, like the further into the show that we're getting.
Oh, that's a good
point. We're
point.
seeing more glimpses into that, and I feel like at this point I'm just able to better conceptualize him existing outside of the show.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, this is just what you do already, and that's what makes you perfect for the show. Not I'm putting on these airs or this persona. I'm sure there's a bit of heightened persona going on here, but like not much, you know?
And that's true for both of them, actually. We haven't,
Yeah.
it's a really good point. We haven't mentioned in quite a few episodes, like how they've developed as hosts.
Mm-hmm.
And they have personas now,
Yeah.
but those personas are totally just feel real. It doesn't
Yes.
feel like they're, like you said, they're not putting anything on. They're not trying to present in any particular way. Just Adam is brilliant and goofy, and Jamie is a supervillain. Like, it's just who they are, and it's how it comes across on the show. And it's so earnest that you don't doubt it for a second.
What kind of supervillain would you say? There's like a particular franchise that he might belong to?
I always think of him as like Ozymandias.
Ah, that's
from
great.
Watchmen.
That's great.
Where it's very psychological, kind of like, I have a plan, and it's just I'm gonna do things my way.
Might involve 500 million deaths, but like, it's the
I've done the math, and it
works.
works out. That's kind of the thing.
Acceptable losses.
I mean, that was kind of him last week with the chicken gun
That
thing.
is definitely true. I was setting you up for a Bond reference, which has become a staple of the show for some reason.
There's no Bond episode this season either. For some reason, it just got in our heads.
There's not for some reason. It's me. I'm the reason. I cannot stop.
And I'm wrong. I mean, we did Goldfinger this season, so there has been.
That's true.
So maybe there's good reason for it. We're not.
It'll come back. We're setting up a callback. It's definitely intentional. Please trust us.
Several years in advance. Greatest callback of all time. They come back to the actual bridge build, and we actually see the army of 12 stomping robots on the bridge, and it's a Looney Tunes visual.
They have
Little helmets. Oh, God. It's just a crazy cartoon visual, and I love it. They bring in an air compressor they said they use for jackhammers.
Yes.
In order to power these things. And this is what you alluded to earlier. They power up the soldiers, and they kind of dance on the bridge. They don't have enough air at first. And it was so adorable. Just these little And they fix the compressor and actually get it going again. And these things just start
it's
all
so
over.
fast.
It's hilariously fast.
They're just pounding away.
And it looked like they had put almost with like a sheetrock down as the road bed.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because I also noticed that, and I was like, I feel like that might make it harder. Like, aren't they testing about if this will make it sway?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess you would have how many tons of asphalt or concrete on an actual bridge. So I don't know that if it was all done to scale, I don't know that that's a problem.
That's true. I guess to me, this is another one where I'm unsure if they are trying to exhaust every idea to see, can we feasibly make this happen, or are we just going to go with the first thing, and if it works, it does, and if not,
I think that's hard because of the editing. Like I don't like you said
that's
this.
fair.
You said
That's
it
fair.
about the skiing thing. I like they're constantly building it up. It's like this is the final test.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could have been the final test out of 40. Like,
That's true.
And we just don't.
We
know.
already know that at least some of it is shot out of order.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you built a bridge? Never.
Never
Never
in
in
my
my
life.
life.
Never.
Do
Not once.
not turn around.
You guys are gonna blur this
The
out, right? You're gonna blur this out in post.
Bridge
right?
is standing right behind me, isn't it?
But it was interesting that whatever they were using for the road deck, it looked kind of like sheetrock. I'm not totally sure what it was.
Yeah.
But all the freaking robots do is just tear it to pieces.
Demolish it.
Just Jamie very successfully made 12 tiny jackhammers. Is basically all he succeeded in doing.
And boy, did they do their job. Which is also odd because I was really under the impression that the rhythm was going to be a primary factor. So I thought it would be like left, right, left, right. And it's just... I was like,
because
I don't know of too many militaries in the world that march this way.
well, they do start actually, Jamie has to go in and manually turn each one down to get them in sync and get them to a speed. But even still, it didn't have there's a human element to a rhythm. And it's like the Millennium Bridge was the perfect example of people were getting in a rhythm without realizing it.
Yes.
And I feel like you can't replicate that in robotics.
Yeah.
Especially not pneumatics. And this is where the tension really comes through because they talk about that Adam and Jamie had some big argument about whether to do it electronically to power the robots or to do it pneumatically. And so the tweaking is harder and Adam is like very salty about it. And it just put over this whole myth. I felt like there was just that specter of they're not really having fun.
Yeah.
And they just seem frustrated by this, which I completely understand. It sounds like a horribly difficult thing to do. I couldn't do it.
Right.
But from a television perspective, they're the proxy for us, right? And when they're not having fun, I don't know. I just felt kind of icky during some of this part.
I agree. It and also the parts I thought they were going to focus on were like that, where I thought for certain they were going to calm down on, well, let's do both. And it was just like, no, we're on a time crunch. Like, why this one?
Yeah.
Why are you now on a time crunch? Like I don't recall that being like a super present thing in any of the past ones, but apparently this one really needed to be done within a certain window.
I wonder if that's part of now they're making a show full time.
Ooh.
You know what I mean?
Good
they
point.
have a production schedule now.
Good
They've
point.
got to deliver.
Episodes are coming out.
They got to deliver by a certain date. So each myth gets X amount of time and then X amount of budget, and that's all we got because we're not just running around making pilots. We're in it now. I wonder if that kind of changes the dynamic of how they have to, produce.
It's a good point.
But all they do at this point is just break the bridge.
Yeah. So
and
something is busted.
And they tee up. I thought this was a nice beat that they have to make a new robot. And Jamie is going to make his super stomper.
Yes.
Which we'll see in just a little bit.
Actually, at the very start of this, Jamie and I had a big argument about whether or not to do this electrically or pneumatically with air. And I strongly suggested that we not use air. I explained it to him in great detail, and he decided to ignore a good portion of it.
So now we are back out with our Stanford rowers who are going to be helping. They're honorary Mythbusters for the day. And they spend a lot of time now. They've built them up as these masculine, characters. Now they start changing that narrative a little bit and building it into, if this world-class rowing crew can't pull Jamie Hyneman out, they're total wimps.
They are wussies.
It's such a turn.
Really severe. I think it's led by the coach as well. Like, he seems to be the one that is pushing the hardest for this narrative.
This coach is so into this.
He is. Can I say rock hard? We'll find out, listener.
He lives for competition.
Yes.
You can tell he is one of those guys. He puts testosterone on his Wheaties. This dude. And I love the fact
Testosterone frosted Wheaties.
testosterone.
Yes, it's not a steroid. Don't look it up.
I love that he brings that energy to Mythbusters.
Yeah.
Which is the least alpha energy show on the planet. And then you just have this guy being like, "Argh!"
Just a dash of Spike TV in there.
Yes.
Just a dash.
Yes, just throwing it in.
Sprinkling.
And I pulled a clip, and it is longer than we normally play, but there were two amazing things back to back in this clip, beginning with the narrator, Robert Lee, who really sets the stage for the stakes of this issue, and then you get a little bit of the coach on the other side.
It's too late for second thoughts. This is about sporting glory or national televised failure. And there are no excuses.
Explanations did not get the man on the moon, and it will not get this Mythbuster out of the water. Okay? This is Apollo 13, baby. In Houston, we don't have a problem.
Explanations did not get us to the moon. I think they had to explain a lot of things before they got us to the moon.
I think that's called math, my guy. Oh, God.
Apollo 13. That's the one where we went to the moon, right?
I think he's only seen the movie.
I gathered that.
And he doesn't remember a whole lot. And just
it was pretty new at that point, I think.
The setup of the narrator just being like, this is going to be televised failure. This thing that we're testing to see if it's even possible. If they can't do a thing that we don't know if it's possible, it is failure and they're done.
The cadence, the complete, or no, what was it? Televised, national, failure. Like he just hit each point
I
with
love him so
such
much.
Venom. Oh, it's so good.
He's so great.
It's so good.
And just his voice, I come back to this all the time because I love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I think of him as the Han Solo of Mythbusters, which by that I mean you need a character who is pointing out the fact that this is inherently ridiculous what we're doing and we're not taking ourselves too seriously.
Yes.
And that's what he does purely through his voice.
Yeah.
It's not even, oftentimes it's not even in the lines that are written for him that much. It's in the way, it's like in the, the best medieval tool he's made all day. He's just putting the stank in there to make the point of like, we know this is crazy.
Another one came in this episode when they showed us the Millennium Bridge. He was like, anyway, back to HQ. I was like, hey, that's clever.
Nice work.
I like that.
Nice work, man. Yeah. Oh God, he's so good.
I would love to know how much of that is in the script. Like how much
inflection
of it
cues, or is it just him?
Yeah. Or is he just? I mean, he's right. Like whether or not it was written there,
it's perfect.
Or it is absolutely perfect. He is a character.
And I imagine that's probably fun for a voiceover professional like him, who most of the time, like, I've heard the phrase that Ken Burns uses where he doesn't want his narrators doing any inflection. He wants it to be very, because he doesn't want it to be.
Well, that explains a lot.
He doesn't want it to be performative. And so the term that he uses is like, you need to be God's stenographer.
Interesting.
Which is what people are required to do a lot in that. Like, you don't, if you're selling a product or what, you don't have a lot of leeway.
Yes.
On Mythbusters, like, there's a lot you can do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun to be had. And it sounds like he had a freaking blast.
Yes. And it's not like a perfect documentary in the traditional sense.
Right.
And also, like, Ken Burns is typically talking about, like, the Civil War.
Right.
Or Auschwitz or something that, like, you don't really want them to be like, Antietam? What was that about? That makes sense to me. I do generally. I see what he's saying, Ken. It's
Ken,
like
you're on a first name basis. Ken.
Okay, fine. You outed me. I can't right now remember if it's Burn or Burns. All right, you got me. Well done. And I forgot the point I was gonna make. So
It's
Good
just
job. I hope you're proud of yourself, Cliff.
it's just it's like, like the different dolls. He's sad historical Ken.
Yeah.
No, but you were talking about the narration and the point that of not putting a bunch of inflection and being a little bit more flat, especially for that kind of subject matter,
Right.
not being performative on top of,
Yes,
terrible things.
But I think it makes perfect sense. So in theory, I agree with him, but it makes perfect sense to me why Robert Lee is absolutely one of the Mythbusters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he gets it.
He's there, and you feel him.
Yeah.
And even if you don't necessarily know the name, I can guarantee you can hear the voice in your head.
100%.
You're hearing it right now.
And the thing that I wonder too is I wonder if he ever even went to M5 because he's in Australia.
Ooh,
He's one of the Beyond. He was with Beyond in Australia. So it's so strange to think about. In my mind, he is in these early days the third Mythbuster.
yes.
He and Dr. Joseph Witham, honestly, those four are the show at this point. And I wonder if he ever even set foot in the place. It's crazy to think about. And it's just a testament to how good he is.
His absence would be felt.
Big time.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work with anybody else.
Yeah.
And you see why, he was the narrator for the whole show.
That is still, props to be there from the very beginning.
From the pilots.
I understand why. I wouldn't let that guy go if my life depended on it.
So good. Back at the water skiing test, on the first test, Jamie falls.
Yes.
He kind of tries to get up, and they talk about how, and this made a lot of sense to me the way that they were describing it, that it's the pulse of the rowing that makes it so difficult. It's not a consistent speed like you have with a boat. It's a variable speed, and so he's having to adjust the way that he, is standing and the way he's pushing back or pulling or whatever to make that happen.
So much core.
I know, the strength that it would take to do this is nuts.
Oh, I couldn't do it?
No.
You kidding me?
Oh my God,
Not
no.
a chance. In my prime, I couldn't do this. And Jamie was like, all right, I can learn this and perfect it within, I don't know, day and a half.
Yeah. And I love at one point
Conservatively.
after the first test, Adam, they pull the boat over and Adam's like, you think you can keep going? And Jamie's like, yeah. What do you mean? It's just
Of course I can.
Of course I can keep going. That's what we're here to do.
RoboCop.
They do a couple of more tests, and this coach is just keeping the energy alive. And I loved at one point, he's just barking orders at the rowers, and he's calling Jamie Big Dog, and just trying to keep the whole thing he's got all this energy. And they cut to the kids in the boat, the rowers look like they just don't give a crap.
Could not care less
They're
to
just
be on national television. They're like, again.
What is this guy doing?
What is this beret man doing again?
Why are we pulling this guy with our boat? I don't understand.
Coach is yelling. Let's. Surely you had a coach like this. I feel like everybody did. That just gets so worked up in the moment that they're just saying things.
Yeah.
And you're one of my favorites was I had a coach that was trying to give us a halftime speech, and there was another player named Buck, and he goes up to him and was like, Buck, you think you're invisible? Do you think you're invisible out there? It's like, no, coach, I don't think I'm invisible. With the most dead fan. We all knew he meant invincible, but coaches just get so wrapped up in the moment that they're just saying things. They're not aware of what those things are.
I'd have been like,
they could be relevant.
Was I picking my nose? What do you mean? Everybody could see what I thought I was playing the game. I don't know what's going on.
I would have worn pants if I knew people could see me, coach. Come on. I'm not a total idiot.
I think this coach's energy is justified when Jamie finally gets up and skis behind the boat.
That's true.
For a full 40 seconds. And it is a straight up Looney Tunes visual. And I loved this is where I was I did not expect to love this myth as much as I do.
Yes.
But I am cackling with joy right now.
I was fully prepared to come in here and be like, bad episode. This one moment carried the whole. I tried to be good. I tried to save the content for the show.
Yes.
I don't need to text Cliff in the middle to let him. I couldn't help it. I think I was just like, WTF, he's doing it?
Yeah.
And you like knew exactly what I was talking about.
I had the same reaction. It's as satisfying, and it's another one of those great things about the show. This moment was as satisfying as the Jado rocket car shooting down the desert. It's that kind of like, what am I watching right now?
Yes, I
sort
cannot
of visual.
believe that worked. I cannot believe that they're moving that quickly, that this is possible. I look well documented that I don't know what I'm talking about, but this time I was like, okay, I give it up to science. That's
It was great.
science and abs.
Science and abs.
Accomplished this.
It's our next podcast. Science and abs. We have to go find the abs.
Oh, I was about to say, I can't provide either of those. Also, you're fired. No, nuts.
In the end, they did say this myth was confirmed. You can, in fact, ski behind.
All you need is one of the country's top rowing
that's
program.
And one crazy coach to yell stuff at him.
And one crazy... Look, if there's anything I've learned in 30-something years of life, it's that I can trust experiments that involve Stanford. I know this to be true.
I'm pleased as punch. That worked better than I'd ever hoped for. The fact that I could do this says that it ain't as ridiculous at all as we thought.
And finally, we come back to Break Step Bridge one more time. This is actually a lot like last week, I'm realizing, where they kind of made a mistake with the chicken gun and they had to come back and do it again. Now they have to rebuild the bridge once again, which is great. And Jamie builds...
Such a middle finger to Adam.
I know. Adam's just like, what?
How?
After this again. And Jamie builds his single mega marching robot.
Yes.
Based on like weights this time, so they can get a little bit more resonance and have a little bit more control over it. And I just thought that this contraption, which was super cool. It looked like Claptrap's Halloween skeleton cousin, you know? It's just this weird gangly robot thing that like is definitely going to come to life and be like, Jamie, you are God.
Sir, you bought that from Lex Luthor, didn't you?
You did.
There's no way.
But from like the at LexCorp, you know? It's like it's one of the
failed
early
ideas.
It's one of the early models.
The ones that didn't go up against Superman.
Yeah, exactly. And with this, they do finally manage to get a little bit of a wobble, and you can start to see what they're going for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They add more weight, the wobble gets a little bit more, it's kind of shifting, and you can go, okay, I can see this. I think the thing that started to confuse me here, and I felt this way a little bit with all the mini robots, marching robots, but even more with this one was like, but the myth isn't about can something twice the size of the bridge upset it with a rhythm or whatever. It's about, isn't it partly about scale? Like, isn't part of the reason you feel like, oh, it's amazing that soldiers could wreck a bridge is that they're very small and the bridge is very big. Yeah. Like, that seems like to be part of it. This is just...
If you had one Gigantor, soldier across...
Exactly. If Giant Man shows up...
we can't get Goliath across.
Exactly. And so it was like, I started to get the idea, but at the same time, I was like, this just doesn't feel... This feels all out of whack to me. I didn't really get where this was now.
Yes, the thread was lost completely by the end of it. But that robot was pretty cool.
The robot was pretty cool. And again, it just wrecks the bridge. Yeah. And then Adam gets pissed off and wrecks it even more, finally releasing that tension that has been held through the whole thing.
And they're like, I guess it's busted?
Yeah. Well, see, so the result on this one is weird because they actually say, right before they say it's busted, they say that we couldn't replicate the parameters of the myth.
I'm glad you caught that. Yeah.
And so I was like, well, that's incomplete then.
Yes.
Like, it's one thing if you replicate the parameters, but you don't get a result.
Yes.
But to not even be able to get to the parameters of it.
It's almost like this episode almost felt like it was a catch-all for the ones that didn't really work.
Yeah.
They kind of worked, but they're not necessarily that interesting, which at first upset me, but now looking back, it's like, would I have sprinkled one of these into what a better episode overall just to, take the hit on one.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Just dump them all in that one, which again, we don't know if from the outset, these episodes, the myths are already assigned to them.
Right.
We don't know. But it seems unlikely to me that you would have 3 for 3 that just like don't quite go according to plan, with the possible exception of the water skiing.
I almost feel the opposite, that the fact that you do end up with a couple in one episode that kind of are similarly off shows that maybe they were deciding at the outset, well, these 3 go together, and if whatever we get, we get.
Yeah.
Because I feel like from a television producing perspective, you would try to be like, let's bury the ones that don't work as well. And because week to week, I mean, especially back then, your week to week ratings really mattered. So you were trying every week to deliver. You didn't want one bum episode. You wanted to space it out. So I don't know.
That's a good point. I do wonder if that became a thing later in the show, where some of them do get left on the cutting room floor. I would be very interested to know that.
I had a similar thought with this one of, I don't know if this ever gets retested. I don't remember that happening, but it might. But I wondered if later, when they had a bigger team and more money and everything else, if there would have been a way that they could test this with actual people, like make some sort of soft bridge over a ball pit or something, you know, but that will have at least testable properties, and then get people on there, because the human element is one thing they really didn't account for at all in this. And I feel like is the whole thing. Yeah. Like the human ability to match the rhythm, the scale of humans versus a bridge. I feel like that is the whole thing. And that wasn't anywhere in this. They went very much down just a pure stomp, stomp, stomp. Yeah. See if that destroys a bridge direction.
I have to imagine it does come back, because didn't you say that you specifically remembered this one?
I did, but I remembered the actuators. Like I remembered the way that this myth went. Because I mean, it's very visual. Yes. So that image has stuck around in Mythbusters fandom for a long time, with the little marching robots with the yellow bellies and the helmet and all that kind of stuff. So it is definitely this episode I remember. So I don't know.
I keep trying to have an episode that I don't like, and then you bring up so many good points. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I did kind of like it. I guess there was some stuff in there.
The robots were pretty cute.
The robots were so cute. They had their little hats on. They were good little misters and madam.
Well, we will see what we're in for next week. Our myths are sinking Titanic. Very interesting.
What do we think they're testing for?
I don't know. I honestly have no idea.
Interesting.
That's going to be interesting to see. Goldfish memory.
Okay.
And a trombone explosion, which I do remember that one. There's a specific visual that I remember in that myth that's hilarious, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, it sounds like we're in for a treat, and you are too.
Absolutely. We hope you guys will watch the episode and then come back next week to hear us break it down. But until then, thanks for listening.
Bye, bubbies.
Try This at Home is produced by Slugline Media. The show was written, hosted, edited, and shot onto the internet by Cliff Bumgardner and Harrison Stewart. Our music is by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. You can follow the show on Instagram at TryThisPod or email us, trythisathomepod@gmail.com.